Welcome to the Road to Redemption podcast with your host, Cam Williamson. Each week, Cam sets out to shatter the labels and stigmas associated with mental health awareness by giving life lessons and raw overviews of events happening around the world.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this episode of the Road to Redemption podcast. I'm, as always, your grateful host, Cam Williamson. Today's going to be a short one. We've talked a lot about, codependency. We've talked a lot about, being attached to people and being avoidant of people and stuff like that. Today, I want to give you back one of the most powerful lessons, one of the most painful lessons. So I apologize in advance if I get a little emotional during this, because these are the feelings I don't tap into very much. These are the ones that scare me. These are the ones that hurt me. These are the ones that I really try very hard to avoid at all costs. And when you go into the depths of this type of darkness, it gets very sad and it gets very painful and it gets very depressing. So I'm just warning you in advance, this is going to be a little bit of a heavy one, but it's super important. If it wasn't super important and I didn't feel like some of you out there may need to hear it right now, I wouldn't be making this episode, because Lord knows I would go out and find some way to avoid talking about it. So let's just get right into it, man. Your ability to be alone, your willingness to be alone in life, your being okay with not being chosen, you being okay with not being good enough, you not being the one that fills every void to the people you want, the times you don't measure up, and the times you have to sit by yourself alone and make choices after, like I said in the past episode, when you look at life around you and you see everything and you see the direction that everything's going, your job, your family, your personal life, whatever, and you look and you go, okay, obviously some things need to change. What needs to change? What can I do? And man, so oftentimes we know that the answer is that we have to sit in ourselves. And, when it's financial things, people don't want to downgrade the way they eat. People don't want to downgrade the way they dress. People don't want to downgrade their social life. People don't want to downgrade their technologies or their streaming services or their whatever. It gets very hard because you're like, then I have to sit by myself. If I'm bored, if I don't have streaming services and I don't have these big fancy meals that I can make myself, but if I got to go back to eating like ramen noodles and fucking watching shit on my phone because I don't have cable or whatever, yeah, you might have to do that for a while, and it's very hard. But if you know that you're working towards something, that motivation and that inner drive to get to that thing is the reason that you make all the sacrifices you make. And the problem is those sacrifices sometimes require a lot, and those things are hard. They're hard to do. It's hard to give up your favorite things, and it's hard to give up your leisure and your comfort items, and it's hard to have conversations that are difficult, and it's hard to, take your full cross of your life, man. And this is something I deal with a lot. Take the full cross of your life and fucking bear that shit, Everything. Every choice you've ever made, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, just take that motherfucker and hold it. Sometimes in mental health especially, we do so much to push that away. Don't deal with that. Find ways around it. Find ways to whatever. Or in mindfulness, just sit with it and just let it pass. Man, sometimes I think you do, for your own goddamn good, need to pick up every choice you've made and carry that motherfucker for a minute and go, man, everything I've done has gotten, and I feel like this is why kind of like when people flex on people, it's like, that's kind of what you're doing. That's you going, man, I bared my fucking cross. I carried my shit and I still fucking landed here. And, sometimes when you're not willing to do that and you're not willing to look at the decisions that put you in the bad places in life, or the decisions you did that left you alone for years or days or months or whatever, man, sometimes you have to be willing to look and go, maybe it's time that I'm in an alone period again, more than I want to be. Maybe it's time that I have to reassess, where my energy is and where my energy goes. And because Man, I can tell you one thing, one of the most valuable lessons I've ever heard, and it was from, I believe it was Denzel Washington, which is don't mistake movement for progress. You could do a lot of shit. You could do a lot of moving. You can go back and forth. You could do a lot of stuff. But if you're not actively hitting the points to progress, then you're just making unnecessary energy wasting movements. And yes, you can have reasons why you might be doing these things and chasing certain impulses and doing whatever, but if you're not actively making progress every single day, then you're just moving. You're just wasting energy. And a lot of us waste energy just trying not to sit in ourselves and trying not to, and here's the hardest thing. Reassessing the energy that you give out is hard because we care about people. We love people. And we want to be as involved as we want to be in people's lives, but sometimes that doesn't match up. And I can tell you, when you're trying to be more involved than you're being asked to be, imagine you went to a party that you were invited to go to. You showed up an hour early to help set up things they didn't ask you to help. Then you tried to take over everything and go, oh, we should put these here and do this and do this, do this. And now everybody's standing around going, hey, man, you were invited to this party, but now you're like trying to take over the party. And you go, no, I was trying to help. And they go, well, we don't really need help in that way. And you're like, oh, okay, fine. Well, then I'll come back at 4:30. No problem. That's just who I am. I was trying to be helpful. And then as a person, whether you're the one that was doing all the moving or the person that was seeing all the movement and not understanding it for the person's intention and you seeing it for how you see it, either way, both people walk away from that situation and honestly should go, wow, I either learned something from that or maybe these are just not my people. And that's a hard thing for us to do because guess what? You were invited to that party. At one point you were wanted, and then you showed up and you were too much, and now you got to go away. And do you think you want to come back at 4:30? Probably not, because now the energy's off, everything's off, and it's like nothing is more important. And I've said this 1,000 times. Nothing is more important in this life than your kids and your relationship with your kids. Nothing is more important than love and handling love responsibly. And the only way you can do that is being willing to make very tough choices. And when you have to make tough choices, you have a lot of proxies you can use to get out of making said choice. There's a lot of people and reasons and schedules and conveniences that can help you. Remember, things are cheap. Decisions, impulse ones are easy to make. Confrontations are easy to avoid. All these things are easy, but they don't help you make progress. And for me, I am someone who has put myself so far behind in life. I have kids that I don't get to see very often. I have, terrible communication just as a person, let alone inside my interpersonal relationships. My youngest daughter, who is my entire life, is dealing with the fact that she only sees me, every couple days for so many days, and then she doesn't see me, where I otherwise was with her every single day. And there's a lot of things that just like the show. I love this show. I love the energy and the passion that this show gives me. And sometimes I let it go. And I let it go for, when I think I've got to go and I've got to build something, guys, I'll always step away from this. And I'll always go and I'll do what I got to do for my life. And I hope you guys always do the same. I don't expect you guys to watch these videos when your life is in shambles and, everything is going on behind the scenes. But I expect for the people that watch this show pretty regularly and know me and are just trying to follow my life really more than get advice, because you guys know that's not really what this is. I hope the thing you can take from me always in any episode that you introduce people to, I hope maybe it's this one. Because of all the stuff that I talk about on how to try to make relationships work, never forget the relationship that you have with yourself. Because Matthew McConaughey said it best in his book, Green Lights, but No matter who you lay next to in bed every night, you go to sleep by yourself. You lay that head down, you close your eyes, and you sink into you. And man, when you do that, your heart is going to tell you everything that it's trying to tell you. Everything. Hey, man, we're off here. Hey, man, we really need to chase this. Hey, man, we really need to change this. Hey, if we change this. And that's the anxiety, I think, that a lot of people don't want to deal with. And that's why, there's so many like anxiety and depression prescriptions out there right now, is because there's so many people laying in bed at night knowing that their situation is not right. There's things they need to do. It would take them months, maybe years to get out of the hole they're in. But instead of that, we can just fade into nothing instead of listening to some of that. Listen, man, your heart can't physically speak to you. Your intuition has to come from somewhere. Your inner guidance has to come from somewhere. You have to allow yourself to be in yourself for long enough to listen to yourself. And then here's the hardest part. Be willing to argue with yourself. I don't remember who said the quote, and I'm going to get it wrong because I do every single time. But it's like, the truth doesn't mind being questioned, but a lie hates to be challenged. So in your mind, if you're telling yourself the truth, you'll notice that this inner battle doesn't really happen. Hey, I know where I feel about this, and I know where I stand here, and I know that I feel confident in that. Oh, shit. I don't feel so confident in that. Why is that? Have I done enough to feel better in that? Am I good enough for that situation? And then you got to kind of deal with all this stuff. Now, am I saying you should go through every single night and go down this like list of your life and go, okay, financially, and drive yourself nuts? No. As a parent, I'll tell you right now, there's enough parental guilt enough to keep you awake for months at a time. And every day you have new reasons to backlog it. So I wouldn't go down that road. But I'll tell you, if you have things you need to change as a parent, the only thing you're really going to realize, or the only way you're going to realize that, is by slowing down. Sometimes we don't make the changes we need to make because we keep ourselves or our kids so busy that you can't change. How can I change anything if I have to be somewhere every single hour of every single day all the time? I can't. I can't stand in a second and go, does this even make sense? What I'm doing right now, does this make sense at all? No, it really doesn't. It's fun, sure. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, yeah, some things got their purposes and some things are whatever, but like, damn, if I could change a few of these things, I probably would. If I just had a minute to breathe. Man, if I was able to do this and take on this, then maybe I could change this one thing and get some of my own time back. But again, it's hard to even get people to assess their lives, let alone look at it for what it really is. Assessing something is one thing. I'll tell you one thing I've been terrible with lately is assessments, especially physical ones. Looking at something and thinking I know what I see. And then a second later, I'll be like, damn, man, I really thought I just saw something completely different right there. And then from a perspective standpoint, I'm having to learn as I get older that the way I see life in general is kind of flawed. And I have a lot of things that are like defense mechanisms, and I have a lot of things that I've used in my life to get me through certain situations, but I also have a larger part of me, and this is the part that my family often tries to remind me of, which is like this hard part of me that's angry and mean and aggressive and all these things. That is me, and that's a very small part of me, and that is a part that nobody likes to deal with. But the larger part of me is I'm a very loving person. I'm a very giving person, and I'm a very all-in type of person. So with people that are very all-in, the second that they feel like that all-in is not worth whatever the end goal is, and maybe that's very selfish. Maybe you're just off on where you're trying to get with people. If you're trying to do all these things in expectation that they're going to do X, Y, and Z, but you haven't discussed that with them, you're just making assumptions and doing things hoping for rewards, well, that's not okay. But if you're in a situation where you know what the goal is supposed to be, and you're giving all in every day and you're making sacrifices and you're doing these things with the idea that, yes, we sacrifice now so that way we don't have to here. When you start seeing things that jeopardize the goal, that then jeopardizes the sacrifices you're making. Well, you have to start asking yourself, like, damn, can I keep doing this? Because if it doesn't play out in goal-wise because we keep cutting corners on these sacrifices we're supposed to be making, well, that's going to really hinder our chances at our end goal being what it's supposed to be. And I still have things in my life, and I still have things, that I want to protect. And I don't think there's enough people having those conversations. And that's why 50 or plus more percent of marriages end up in divorces. But it's not until people have spent fucking years together. I've done it twice, and I know I say that shit a lot, almost comically now, but it's like, guys, I only say this shit because I fucked it up so bad. I fucked things up as bad as a person can fuck things up, and like, I think every day you should do your very best to unfuck your situation. I've already ruined my YouTube rating on this one, so I don't really care at this point. If you're willing to stand in every single day that you're given by whatever higher power you believe in, I believe in God, and that's the way that I see things, but it's with me, I'm willing to stand in myself and everything I've ever known and the ways that my intuitions have led me and the outcomes that I've gotten and all the sacrifices I've had to make and where I stand today. I can honestly stand to myself and go, yo, I can be alone. I don't want to be, but I can be. Whether, and I've lost people in my life, like my grandfather passed away, and I never thought I would lose him. And that's a part of feeling alone too, when like you physically lose people in life. Where it's like, I can't just reach out to him and call him and get advice now when things are different in my life as I get older. And, when you have complicated relationships with people, the people you need can't always be there for you in the way you need them to be. As much as you may ask and as much as you try to maybe do it healthy, but like whether it's your parents, family members, friends, relationships, sometimes people just can't. And then you just have to accept people for what they are. And, at the end of the day, like I said, you got to go to sleep with you every day. And I'll tell you, you don't want to lay down every single night feeling like you compromised yourself and then not knowing why. If you feel like you're making sacrifices, ask anyone who's ever been successful. Time spent away from kids, money spent, investments made, things done. Those are all for a purpose. That can be justified, and you can sleep real sound doing that. But when you're just doing stuff just to do it, and you're just moving through life not really genuinely, passionately committed to something, well then you're just bowling with the bumpers, and that's a tough way to live, because I've done it. So don't do it. Be willing to sit inside yourself. Be willing to sit by yourself. That's why meditation is so practical. Even if it's just 10 minutes a day, sit down, check in with you without the influence of others, without anyone telling you how much they love you, they hate you, they adore you, they can't fucking stand you, whatever. You're valued, you're not good enough. Sit. Figure out where your energy's at. Figure out where you need to dispense it and where you need to get some of it back. Right? That's the lesson for today. Hope it was short enough. I love you guys so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.